Welcome to the ThriveMasters show, where the focus is to reverse engineer action-taking impact makers. On this episode, we have Anthony Trucks. Anthony is a former NFL player turned transformational identity shift coach.
Anthony, welcome to the Thrive Masters show.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. How do you pronounce your name? I want to, is it Vedran?
Vedran is the English name. Vedran, if you can roll the R.
Vedran. I could roll a little bit. Vedran. Vedran. Your tongue has to go to the front of your mouth and you'll get it. That's what I hear.
That's right. Let's roll with it.
Yeah.
All right. The first question is, Anthony, if you had to do a master class on all the wisdom and the success that you've acquired, what would it be on?
Oh, man. It would be on being disciplined and consistent in all times. Not just the good, not just the bad, but all times. I think that's the one thing that for me, from my background of just growing up as a kid and then also sports, it was always this thing of just being able to stay the course when everything else seems to want to rip you off that track.
Wonderful. On your Instagram, it says, I help people get stuff done by tapping into their identity.
Yeah.
Is this where this discipline comes from as well?
Yeah, I mean, the work that I do is in the realm of identity, and you know, there's a close tie to habits. But there's this. If you read the books on habits, which are great books, I've got a whole bunch of them. But it talks about, and I hear this all the time, like, you know, the idea is to have habits where they become automatic and it becomes part of your identity. To say, you know, as opposed to I'm trying to stop smoking to I'm not a smoker. There's a nuance there, and I try to figure out, like, what does that mean? What when someone says identity, what really is that? And the idea is, like, how do we get you to think about the fact that your identity is who you are when you're not thinking about who you are, what you're doing. It's just the things you do and how you flow. But that flow creates a ton of success for people. And so for me, I help people understand how to tap into that, how to program that to where eventually over time, you no longer have to think about, I got to get up and get my workout. It's just something you do. Or I don't got to think about, I got to reach out to that person. You just do it. It's just this natural flow, because that's what creates successful people. The things that everybody else sees them do that scare most people, they just do like it's second nature. So no wonder they have success. When I look at your dreams you want to achieve, it's not about what do I have to know or what do I have to do. It's who do you have to become? Because then what you know and what you do gets done.
Now, you mentioned over time. So let's go back when you were a young man. What was the identity then? How was your childhood in general?
Oh, man. Here's the funny thing. This is where a lot of my work comes in. Is I tell people, you'll hear this, and it's a great question, man. So what I tell people is I was a completely different person back then. You know, Lewis Carroll wrote a book in 1865, Alice in Wonderland. And at some point after her adventure, you know, someone said, what was it like? And she goes, it's not even worth visiting. I was a completely different person. And it's like, it was just 24 hours before, but so much crazy happens that it's like there's a disconnect between who I am right now and that person I experienced it, almost like it was me, but also not me. And that guy back then, he didn't have self-confidence. He didn't have skill sets. He didn't have any reason to believe success could have been his. He didn't have a lot of friends. He didn't have a sense of self. He really didn't have anything that you would look at and think that guy can be successful. And over time, what I figured out how to do was how to look at it and say, I want to be the guy. I want to be the guy, right? I want to have the things that person has. And we all have that. We all have somebody that we look up to, we aspire to have similar things, not to be them. Like, I don't want to wear somebody's skin like a weird, you know, killer, but it'd be nice to have that house and have that car and have that joy and have that peace and have that business, have that friend, you know, it'd be cool to have that for myself. So how do I get that, right? And that was a big thing years ago. And that was for me a kid, but there's people right now who are listening who are like, yeah, I want something more. And that's okay. I don't care if you want more soda at the water fountain or you want more money or more joy, right? The idea is like you want to have more of something, and that's great. What we typically end up doing, unfortunately, is we go and buy a bunch of stuff and we invest in programs, we get courses, and we get what I call shelf esteem. I buy it, it goes on the shelf, and I feel good that it's there, right? But I don't do anything with it. And so what I realized years ago is like, I wasn't worried about the self-esteem. I was worried about the self-esteem. How do I get that? And you get that from doing hard stuff, man. You get it from doing things that are hard to you, not hard to somebody else, just hard to you. And in doing this hard thing, not only do you accomplish something, because typically on the other side of that something, a great achievement, you accomplish something. But the big thing is you transform into somebody. I am that person now. This is mine. I deserve this. I'm going to keep getting more of this. You have this different transition. And when I was a kid, that guy didn't have any of that grit, that in the moment desire to push, right? Because there's three moments that we typically have in our life that really change the things. It's the how do you plan? The moment when you're planning, what do you have as a big vision? Do you think big, go big? Like, what does it look like? How do you handle the planned moments? We all have amazing plans, but then we get to the moment of it and we get scared. We get that imposter syndrome where we don't make that call, and so we don't do we don't even do it. Or we take a half step and it ends up being bad, and we're like, oh yes, I suck. And it anchors and strengthens what we already had as a small identity. And then there's the unplanned moments. How do I handle unplanned, expected things that pop up? And here's the thing. If you don't think it's who you are to have that success, when that unplanned moment comes up, because those happen fairly often, you shut down and walk away and you never get that thing. But if you have done the work in the background, in the quiet where nobody saw, building up who you are, the habits, the big actions, the self-confidence, when that moment comes, you buckle down and you go to work. I'm going to win this game. This is mine. I'm getting that sale. That's my contract. Like, that's my girlfriend, like these are the things that we'll fight into. And what happens is when you have this identity, you've built it over time, it becomes much easier not only to do the tasks, because when you become this person, it becomes easy. What's hard becomes easy because now it's who I am. I feel weird if I don't do it. But also, human beings, we won't settle for what we deserve. Like, we won't settle for less than what we deserve, period. Like, if I know that's my piece of pie, I deserve it, I'm gonna fight you for my pie, man. That's my thing. And the problem for a lot of people is everybody will fight for what they deserve. But so many people think they deserve something so low, they don't fight very hard. And for me, what I look at is that kid back then, that younger Anthony, he was a foster kid. I got given away at 3 years old in the foster care system. I grew up in poverty. I was beaten and starved and tortured. I had a lot of reasons to see myself as not deserving anything. And I had to work myself to the bone to get that self-confidence. And it wasn't working to achieve, it was working, but every single rep I took, every step I took, every play I took, I got this little sense of like, but more self. I was creating this different guy. And here's what I realized. What you create creates you. All these things I've been talking about, it's all about the process of actionably creating something, because creation is difficult. It is hard. When you're creating, though, you're creating yourself the entire time. And then what happens in the back end, you come out of this and you have not only an amazing achievement, but you have this feeling of you deserve that achievement. And that's what I've done year after year since I was a kid. I just kept leveling up. Like, what do I want? All right, cool. If I want this, I gotta buckle back and do the work in the small, like the habit work, the big action work. I gotta work on my mindset and my beliefs. And I gotta have this personal pride. And I gotta take a step when I may be uncomfortable. A lot of unconfident action is taken to be able to have confidence in something. And I just kept doing that. And I didn't realize it over time, but what I was doing action-wise was actually transitioning my identity. And so when I say use identity, I'm not saying like you're tapping 100% into your identity all the time. A lot of the time you're creating it. However, the end result is that you have a new identity. Therefore, for me, it's like, yeah, I'm using you and your aspiration of a new identity to help you achieve your dreams.
Wonderful. So the main point there is there's hope for us all. If Anthony can transform himself, anybody else can do as well. Now, going a little forward from your childhood, was there a moment where you started creating and aligning towards the success instead of just going all over the place?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the natural part of all life, right? We're always all over the place. I think for me, it wasn't until like maybe like 6-7 years ago, man. It wasn't like all of a sudden. Ups and downs. There's a lot of this, a lot of that, right? So I'm in high school and I get a college scholarship to play football at University of Oregon. So I get this blessing to go play football, and I really shouldn't have. Statistically, if you look at any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are former foster kids like me. Less than 1% graduate college. 50+% of the homeless population in America are former foster kids. So I'm not set up to do very well, yet I get a college scholarship. And it was a big thing. That came from what I just told you, how I worked and what I put in. So I was the guy. I deserved this scholarship. And then I get to college and I have a baby my sophomore year with my high school sweetheart. I meet my real dad, college is up and down, tear my shoulder at one point, almost don't come back, get really good. Blessed to get an opportunity to play in the NFL. I go into the NFL and I learn a lot about life. Like the NFL stands for not for long. You're not in there very long, man. It's a hard game. But the thing is you are every single day bathed in discomfort because you're at the highest level in the world. There's too many things you have to figure out about how to be able to work your hardest when you don't feel like it could turn out to be anything. It's a weird level of hope. And then everybody tells you suck. You get yelled at every day. There's guys making a ton of money. You're making nothing. It's just this crazy environment, but you still learn how to be disciplined in the good and bad moments, whether you feel like it or don't feel like it. And so I got out, I played the NFL, tore my shoulder, came home, opened a gym. That was good. Then it went down, got divorced. Business was all over the damn. I broke everything. And it wasn't until 2016, 2014, I ventured into the space. 2014, my mom passed away, my adoptive mom, and she was a big catalyst to me not being a statistic by loving me past my crazy. And I realized that I had a really deep passion because the gym business I own and this consulting I was doing, the speaking was always to help people from whatever I'd figured out in my life of just the craziness. And at one point I wanted to take my life, man. And I came out of this dark hole. I was like, I got to find a way to make all this craziness of my life make sense. And the way it made sense was to help it make sense for others. And my mom passed away. I was like, I want to give back to the world the way she gave to me. I want it to be something where like she unconditionally loved me past my crazy so I could reach this level of potential that would be unrealistic for a person like me. It was like my life is unbelievable to me compared to the kids that go through this or going through it right now. So my thing has been like, how do I pass that on? And so for a couple of years, I was in a fog. Like I was still running around doing dumb stuff. And I was divorced and, trying to find, multiple women and all this kind of weird thing. And then I woke up 2016, man, and I'm a man of faith. I just had steered clear from my faith. 2016, I woke up next to this woman from Russia who didn't even speak English that I'd met when I traveled to speak there. And it was just this wave of shame. Like I was standing in the mirror and I just remember like, man, I would never want my daughter to see me like this. Cause we had twins, my wife and I, so we have, 3 kids. I didn't want my daughter to see me like this because we had been divorced. And like, I didn't want my kids seeing this man. I didn't like this man. My mom would never approve of this guy and my God wouldn't let me into heaven. So I was like, this dude is not a good guy right now. And I had to figure out what the hell do I got to do? And to be totally honest, this was the first time that I even thought or even was referencing or kind of figured out identity. Because I realized like I was the common denominator. We're all the common denominator in all of our problems. We're the one consistent, right? So
yes.
how do we figure this out? That was the one thing. I was like, how do I navigate this? And so I went in and dug into Anthony. I did a lot of work that realistically, I didn't know what I was doing. I was guessing, but it was great guesses. Like the things I did, like psychologically, if you look at like psychology, it was good. It was right. And I don't like the conversations I would have, the steps I would take. I did it the long and hard way. But at the end of it, man, 10 months later, I got back with my wife and we have an amazing marriage now. I've got my kids with a present father. My business is good. I'm in shape. Things are smooth. Like life is good. So it just started picking up and becoming great within the last, maybe probably 4 years, right? But it's been a long journey to get to this point here. And a lot of it ties back to the work that I teach. Like I teach things I've lived through. And then from the living through, I went and tried to figure out like, how does this scientifically make sense? Spiritually as well, but like, how does, any of the things that I've done make sense from a standpoint of somebody else could do this? Because I'm really going to help people from my story. I better figure out what the benefit is. And so I went and I just dug in. I got textbooks and every Monday morning at 8 to 9:30, I've set aside an hour and a half just to research scholarly journals on identity. Throughout the week, I collect them. I go watch them and read them all on the other days because I want to stay ingrained and figure out how do I make sure this really is helping people. And it's been a blast to watch because when you see people get to the point of they're taking the actions, building the habits, putting in like the big actions and they're establishing that mindset, when that stuff goes into action and they make more money, they save their marriages, their businesses grow, they get better jobs. It's really cool to watch. And so for me, like my life went up and at this point it goes up more because of the lives I get to help.
Now, you've gone through ups and downs with your career in the NFL, with your business in the gyms, with your marriage. Now, how did you deal with failure then? And how does somebody who welcomes a new identity embrace challenges going forward?
Yeah, man, there's a process that I teach. It's actually called reframing failure. So the identity that you have now That thing is built from experience, good and bad. And a lot of those experiences that unfortunately our brains anchor down onto are the bad ones. We remember so vividly all the stuff we've done wrong. It's hard to recall all the things we did right, right? All of them. We're really good at knocking ourselves down, but not good at building ourselves up. And I think it's because we're really able to see the negatives, and that's it, because we sometimes don't learn from the failures. Not everybody's heard before failures are great. They teach you lessons, but most people don't understand where the lesson is hidden. And so there's a process that I teach, and it's based on these 6 levels of failure. At the very top, you have what's called abject failure, end of the world, nothing can come back, nothing can be fixed, right? People just like, oh man, somebody passes away, or something smashed and broke, can't fix it. And then we're like, all right, I want to deal with it. So we walk away from the pain of it. We don't want to deal with it, so we don't learn from it. Then you have what's called structural failure. Something really important fell apart, but the whole thing can be fixed, but it's going to be so difficult. Again, most people are like, man, I don't feel like dealing with this. I'm just going to go and close it down and move on, right? Then you have glorious failure. Something goes wrong, you're like, whatever, light it up, burn it. I'm going to walk away and watch this thing burn. Like the explosion behind me as I walk away, like I'm just going to go and walk slow and it's all going to go downhill. These ones, these top 3, very few people learn from them, unfortunately. They happen, but we don't usually go visit them, like, because it just hurts. It's like, I don't want to deal with that. Then you have the bottom 3, which are powerful, and honestly, where most people need to spend their time. The first one's called common failure. It's why the apology was created. I'm sorry, I messed up. Well, sorry means I'm not going to do it again. If I'm not going to do it again, it's because I learned that I shouldn't do it again. So I have a lesson learned. Oh, you know what? I bumped your car. Sorry, I'm going to make sure I hit the brakes next time in time. So it's a sorry, I apologize, but I learned. The next one's big. It's called version failure. Version failure, essentially, think about the iPhone. The first one went out. They made it as good as they could. They put it out. They got feedback of how to improve it. So the next version came out. We're at iPhone 12 as of today now, right? So all these different versions came out because each version, they didn't go, oh, no one likes this phone, break it, throw it, burn the company down. No, they said, all right, this version sucked. Why did it suck? What can be better? What do we do? Okay, let's make it better. And this is where I think a lot of people should spend a lot of their life. Because whenever you put yourself into a relationship, or you start a business, or you get a job, that version of who you are is going to adjust and change. This is an identity aspect. That version of who you are needs to upgrade to be able to get to the next level of success. Because you mess something up and you failed, that it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you failed. Learn this lesson now. What version of you had some flaws that you can improve to make a new version go out? It's not abject. It is not structural. It is not glorious. It's not the end of the world. So the girl left you. Cool. What version of you sucked? Maybe you should put the toilet seat down, bro. Like, do your dishes, right? Be a better version of you, and then that's not going to happen again. And now we create some hope. The bottom one is what it's called expected failure. And I like to live in expected failure because it's way easier. It's how I have less fear to take big steps. If I go and look at my sports days, every single time I was at practice, I knew I was going to get yelled at. It was expected that I would fail. And it was fine. How come it was okay? It was, I mean, every day, right? Yeah, every day, right? But you get normalized to it. You start hearing what is being said, not how it's being said. So you mess something up. Cool. So someone doesn't like your stuff. Cool. What's the message in there? Oh, I got to fix this, do this, be better, say this, be nicer, apologize. Cool. I'm gonna do that now, and I'm gonna be better. I expect myself to fail in life. Therefore, everything's a lesson. Nothing's abject. Nothing's the end of the world. Some things do hurt. Like, don't get me wrong, man. When my marriage fell apart, that sucked. But it wasn't as glorious and abject and structural as I thought. It really was a version. Anthony sucked as a husband back then. So I had to upgrade my version of Ant. And lo and behold, I got a great marriage, right? So I tell people that, like, these are things I've lived. These are things everybody's living right now. And if you're in that space where, like, you want to do your thing and you're worried about failure, make sure you start taking a look at the past and say, where have I taken things and put them too high on the scale? Where do I need to lower them down so I can learn that lesson and reapply myself with less fear? Because I realize if it does go wrong again, that's just a version. That's just, expected. It's life is about failure, right? And then you can press on and create some cool stuff in life.
Now we're in some challenging times. How does this apply to where we are as a nation, as a world, as a community?
Everywhere. I think it applies everywhere, dude. I mean, you got people who are losing businesses, people who are growing businesses. Some people's problem is, how do I not have to pay taxes on all the money I made, right? Some people's problem is, how do I get by because I have no money? And I get it all, right? All of it ends up being, how do I take the next step? Here's a statement I tell people: action ends suffering. period. No matter what I don't care if you're sitting on the couch and the remote's across the room and you're suffering. An action of getting up to get the remote ends that suffering, right? If you're broke and you have no money, you can't sit there and just be sad all day and broke. You need to take an action of going out and getting a job, doing something, right? So the idea is your action could end suffering. The emotion you have while taking that action matters. How I feel inside when I take the action matters. If I take the action and I don't believe it's going to work out, it's like a kid and you say, go clean your room, whatever, and they go throw things around. Or if it's like, hey, clean your room, I'll get you some ice cream. Oh, yeah. They clean that room perfect, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the emotion behind the scenes. And so for a lot of people, they've taken this failure and they think, I'm a failure. I suck. Why even try? I guess I got to do something. So they go and do something halfway, half energy, and they get a less than half return. It just is horrible. So the way you get out of that is realize like, hey, this was a lesson. This was a version failure. You got hope, because now what happens is you can come from an emotional space of, yeah, I know it broke the first time, but look, now I have learned something I didn't know the first time I did this. I've got more information than I had the first time. So there's no way it's going to fail the same way. I got more. I can do more. I'll be better. So if your mind flips into that mode, then all these different things you've failed at from the past and current and the world at large as it is right now, it's all a version. What version will you choose to create of yourself? What kind of identity do you want to be? So as you become, you get more, you have more, you do more. Because that's really the difference, man. It's who is going to be the individual who at their core has this sense of self and belief that they're going to be able to get the job done, that it's going to be something great. Because when you come from that emotion, because it's who you are, not only will you have success, but it feels easy. That's why successful people make it look easy. We're not any different. I have the same blood. I poop. My wife yells at me for not putting the toilet seat down. Like same. It's just a matter of how do I flow.
Now, what does Anthony do behind the scenes to make it look easy? Because you mentioned you take a day and you read an hour and a half about identity of different people. Yeah. What else do you do to fill up this identity that's going to serve you?
I take action, man, all day long. Well, there's actually what I call the shift method. There's an actual process behind how I do this. The process is very specific, though. It's called the shift method. It's what I created to take my clients through. And what we do is we go through 3 stages. I see, I shift, I sustain that. And the C phase is the big one. It's not just like, let me unpack what's going on. Like there's a depth to, like Avatar, I see, right? Mm-hmm. I need people to get to a depth of seeing. And once you get to a depth of seeing, now you know what the right work to do is. The problem is people choose to input the wrong habits and not realize that who you become may not be who you need to become for the dream you have. You may exercise better and do some things, but maybe you're doing something at the end. You're like, man, this was the wrong work. So we got to take time to see. I'm always doing that. My kids tell me stuff. My wife tells me stuff. My clients tell me stuff. I pray on it. I find out what I got to work on. And I'm like, all right, own it. I do it. Now that I've owned that, the ego's back. I can create big goals, big visions, and go after stuff. And then I shift. And the shift is very specific. It's 4 stages. I design, I develop, I deploy, I debrief. I design my ideal identity. Who do I need to be for this next level? I develop a plan of actions and habits that need to go into place for this guy and this whoever it is to come to life. I deploy this person into the world. And when the world spits back at me, slaps me back, that's great. I come back and debrief. What must I learn right now? What's the lesson? What's the failure lesson? Where is this at? Okay, cool. Redesign, redevelop, redeploy. And I keep doing that. And this is creation. I create, and over time, it creates me. And then now I'm at this level where this is me. Now I sustain that over time, which is checking in and make sure I've got this drive. Do I have a hive of great people around me? And am I thriving internally so I can give back and create more visions for my life?
Now, last question, Anthony. You're talking about the first step is design. Looking forward 5-10 years, what's the vision? Can you do that during this challenging time, or it doesn't even matter?
Yeah, man, the vision's always something. I look at not so much, seriously, who can I become? And the vision for me is like, I'm going to learn skill sets that will be useful in the future. I don't know where I'll apply them, but I learn things. I'm applying information that needs to be applied, or I'm gathering it and putting it to use and consuming it now when I can. Because I think the future is not based off, like I tell people, it's not based off what it is that you 100% know. It's what do you do with it? And for me, if we're trying to, I'm only going to take an action if I know what it's going to be for, you're wasting time. Like you're wasting opportunity. For me, it's like, I'm just going to get all I can into my brain. If you're all sitting at home and I'm sitting here too, I'm going to get my edge. How can I get my edge? It's these books, it's the courses, it's the connections, it's the conversation, so that when the world opens up and there's opportunities, I am more prepared. And so I don't know what the vision for the future is. I just know the vision for the future is a better Ant.
Wonderful. Anthony, where can people follow you? What's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, best place is going to be at Anthony Trucks on Instagram or anthonytrucks.com.
Wonderful. Anthony, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Very welcome, brother.